I probably eat more carbohydrates than I normally do. I think protein is the most important ingredient in the discussion here. I feel that as I age and as I demand more and more from my body, I need that protein. I seem to go through the protein faster than the fat and the carbos. But you know, I know a lot of people are moving away from meat and fish and poultry, for even that matter. So I usually know where my protein, animal protein, is sourced. That's important to me. But rice and beans just don't work for me with protein replacement. I love rice and beans, but I need more. I need the animal.
I love the liquid protein products we have out there at Abbott. We make Ensure Max, and it's a fantastic product. It's a really revolutionary innovation, and you bring up a good point that plant protein does work for a lot of people, and it definitely has a good place, and I like to see more people eating more plant protein. But when we look at dairy protein, it is one of the quickest absorbing proteins. It's the most studied, it's the most efficacious. So I like to see in that post-workout window of like 30 to 60 minutes, and that window is tighter the more fit you are, and if you're female. So I like to see kind of that Ensure Max or that whey protein liquid form, because most of us can tolerate liquids, and we probably finished our run dehydrated anyway, and that dairy protein brings in natural electrolytes, which we need for rehydration. So that's a perfect choice.
I probably should drink more than I do. But I'm sort of like a camel. I mean, rarely during the history of my career have I planted water bottles or replacement drinks along the course. I just try to keep it all in balance. I know it sounds simple, but the simpler your diet, I think, the better off you're going to be. And as Pam alluded to, you know, there are all these fads: proteins in, proteins out, carbs in, carbs out, fats in, fats out. You know, I just try to keep a normal, well-balanced diet, and if my body's craving something, I feed it whatever it's craving.
You know, one thing, just to tie on to what Joni said, it's really interesting in that you're really listening to your body. You're really in tune with what your body needs, and as far as hydration goes, you know, as nutrition experts, it's a long debate over what is the perfect hydration. And it's really a mix of purposeful intake and also listening to your thirst sensor. So just something to think about. When we think about balanced intake, this is in the days before your race. Your balanced intake needs to be pretty carbohydrate heavy. What's happening is you're taking in more carbohydrates, so hopefully you know where that's coming from: potatoes, rice, whole grains, fruit, vegetables, and your body is stockpiling that carbohydrate and that glycogen, and that's the fuel you're going to rely on Monday morning. So it's important to, as we say, top off the tank. So that balanced diet in those days before the race should be about, you know, half of your plate, some sort of carbohydrate, and then I like to say a quarter protein and a quarter fat. And it's pretty simple. It's balanced. It's nothing real novel or crazy. It's nothing new. No new flavors, no new products, etc. Hopefully, it's just, you know, recreating what you've been eating during training. So thinking of your fueling for Monday, and Boston is unique because most of your training runs were probably, you know, before the sun came up, right? So how do you fuel on Monday? I'd like to back it up to Sunday. What are you eating on Sunday? Those meals are so important because you're going to have time to digest, and you're going to have time to absorb. And you're probably going to be a little less nervous than you are on Monday morning, right? So focus in on your lunch on Sunday, pay attention to your dinner on Sunday, and then Monday morning, I usually recommend kind of 2 small breakfasts. So maybe something before you get on the bus, something before you leave your hotel room, and then bring something with you. There will be fuel in the athlete's village. You want to make sure it's fuel you're comfortable with and you're familiar. So go out to Trader Joe's and pick out, you know, things that you recognize and things you use during your training. Again, your mantra should be nothing new on race day. And your goal will be to eat until you're satisfied, nowhere near stuffed. And give yourself, you know, at least an hour before you head to your corral to digest and use the facilities.
Just one more point about Pam. I can't reiterate her point about new products. in the days leading up to the race. If all of a sudden somebody says to you out in the expo hall, oh, this is the newest and greatest thing, and you haven't tried it before, don't try it today. And that's so important. So my training, at the beginning of or during the heyday of my career, or at the top of my career, I always counted on 3 workouts. One was some sort of a speed or an interval workout or a race, and one was a medium long run, which would be 10 to 13 miles, at a good hard pace, and then one was a long run of 16 to 20 miles. And that was how I felt on that given day.
Joan, can you define good hard pace?
Negative splits, do you all know what negative splits are? I start off slower and I keep picking up the pace, and then I really will test myself on the last mile. I mean, that's the kind of speed work I'm doing. The other type of speed work is hearing a car or a truck in the distance and trying to beat it to a certain landmark. But I wanted to we have a brand new track in our community, and I wanted to get up there to do some strides, but I was trying to use my better judgment because I didn't want to overstride, because I'm on a fine line with my knees and heels and joints and everything else. So I thought, well, I'll go up there. I did a good run on Sunday evening, and then it snowed on Monday, and the track was covered. Somebody was trying to tell me something. So I said, well, maybe I'll go up on Wednesday. So I met a friend in downtown Freeport. And I thought, well, we'll run easy, and then maybe we'll do a few strides on the track. But the snow still hadn't melted. So, as far as interval workout or track workout, I really haven't done anything on the track for over a decade. And the torque of the turns is apt to raise havoc with me. So, as I said earlier, I keep it simple. I just run the way I feel on a given day. And if I'm tired, then I don't push the pace. Now, my last long run was on Tuesday, I guess. But it was supposed to be on Wednesday, but there was snow in the forecast, so I said, well, the roads are clear. I'm going for it on Tuesday. And for some reason, my watch was malfunctioning that day. So I left it behind, and it was the best thing I did. All I wanted to do was get out there and feel strong and feel fluid and feel good, and I did, and I have no idea what my pace was. The thing with pacing and leading up to the marathon is we depend on our pace, and I like to see a progression of faster and faster times per mile. And if I had run that run on Tuesday and my pace had been slower than the other runs leading up to that point, it would have gone right to my head. Because marathoning, I think, especially as we age, is more mental than physical. So you have to have a strong mind. I mean, it's mind, body, and spirit, right, in the athletic triad. But, you know, I think the mind and protein win.
Naturally, as a triathlete, I tend to bike. I'm a really poor swimmer, and luckily swimming is not as accessible, so I can skip that to my coach's chagrin. But I've noticed that over time, and after having 3 children, that my core is awful. And because my core is awful, I find that I have these tweaks and these, this soreness, etc. So I've been focusing on at least once a week doing a strength training kind of course, somewhere between, like a HIIT workout, and I do it more on what I call a light or a recovery day. And, it's more, a little bit toning. It's not heavy weights, and it's more, just, planks, etc. And I found that that's making me a stronger runner, because I always feel like I go for a run and I'm like, come on, glute, you want to do anything? So I'm trying to get more and more muscle groups involved in supporting me over the long course, and that has helped me a lot.
I do a triathlon every weekend in the winter, meaning I do 2 triathlons every weekend in the winter. And I usually get up and I'll go for a run, and then I'll go alpine skiing until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I'll have a big lunch, and then I'll go out and Nordic ski for a couple hours. So I actually have more kilometers on my legs coming into Boston than I have miles. So that's definitely a form of cross training, and I just can't take the pounding like I used to. So cross country skiing's a great event because you really work your upper body, and most runners have legs that are stronger than arms. So again, we're back to the balance thing. If you can bring your strength up in your upper body, whether it's the workouts that you're doing, strength workouts or whatever, you're going to be more efficient as a runner. So historically, I've always run better in the spring than I have in the fall because I'm not doing the Nordic skiing leading into the fall marathoning season. And then the second part of your question was hard, easy, or easy?
Easy runs and rest days and how important those are.
Yeah, an easy day for me is a rest day, and I was chomping at the bit on Monday. Again, it was snowing, the roads were icy, and my next door neighbor said, come to the pool with me. And I was going to stay in bed a little later that morning. I was going to read. I was just going to have a mellow Monday morning. And I'm glad she got me up, and we went to the pool, and we ran in the pool, and the roads were beginning to clear a little bit at dusk, and I was proud of myself because I held myself back and I didn't go running. But, so it's hard for me to take a day totally off, but that day I knew it was the prudent thing to do, and so I did. But we're all crazy.
I think when I was younger, it was if I, and I had no kids, viewers, obligations, if I couldn't get out the door for an hour, I wasn't gonna go. And now I found you fit workouts in when you can, but what I would have told my younger self was take advantage of that time you do have and make that workout purposeful. So I would run for an hour, same pace, same route, etc. But it's like Joan was saying, those important workouts, like add in some tempo, or carve out, save this time today and put 2 hours tomorrow. So I would have made those workouts more purposeful, and I really would have done some strength training. It's nothing that crossed my mind when I was a much younger runner, but now as an older runner with a really poor core, I wish I would have had that kind of muscle memory, as I like to think about it, and I would have made changes to my diet. I think younger runners, and maybe any of us in this room, sometimes think that if the fire is hot enough, anything will burn, and that's really not the greatest mindset for longevity. I would have made more choiceful selections on my plate and really kind of banked better nutritionals, and then your performance can only go up from there.
Joan, how about you? What would you have told your younger self? Or maybe some advice that you gave. I know your daughter's a runner as well.
Rest is the base of all activity, and when your body's tired, it needs a rest. And I think most of us know when our body is tired, and we just have to, Nike has a sign all over the signs all over the campus that say, listen to the voice of the athlete. Whether you have a trainer or a coach or a PT or whomever, they don't know how you are really feeling. Only you know how you're really feeling. And you have to listen to that inner voice and act accordingly. I think I ran a lot of garbage miles, and I probably would have had healthier knees at this age, but after 150,000 miles. They're still working for me, but they're a little beat up, right up until the 11th hour. Going out this afternoon because you've been inspired by what you've heard today or what you've heard walking around the expo or other people who you've met telling you, and then you're going to go out and say, okay, I just have to test it one more time. I just have to make sure I'm ready to go. And you go out and you run your race pace, or you run faster than your race pace, and you wear yourself out. And for me, the hardest part of marathon training is the taper. It's just telling yourself you deserve a rest. You're going to demand everything you possibly can from your body on Monday, and build it up. But it's hard to squelch the adrenaline 2 days out. So just be smart about it.
How about you, Pam?
I think I echo what Joni said about you can't cram for a marathon, even though we've tried it. And I've seen this a lot at the Ironman World Championships, where people are doing crazy hard workouts, like up until the 11th hour, and you're like, why? But, you know, I think some common mistakes on this course in particular is going out too fast. I've done that. I've paid the consequences. So I would really, recommend patience in those first couple miles, even as those downhills drag you along. And, you know, just be patient with yourself. Go towards Monday thinking not that you're not fit and not that you haven't banked enough miles, but thinking more of, I'm gonna have really fresh legs and they're gonna be ready to carry me over those 26.2 miles.
I can just add, how many of you are running on Monday? And how many of you are running your first Boston? So Pam's right, it's downhill at the start, and your adrenaline's going to be flowing, and they're going to compress the start zones because of the weather. So there's going to be a lot of feeling of go, 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 rush, rush, rush. You got to say patience. And mentally, we talked about the mental component of running and racing earlier. It's much easier at the end of a race to be passing people than it is to be passed. So if you make the corner at the fire station and you're heading up the hills and you're starting to pass people, you're in a good place and space.
Mm-hmm.
If you get to the fire station and you just feel like, I've spent my wad, so to speak, you're in trouble. So it's really, coming off the hills, coming down into Cleveland Circle, heading into Brookline, that's when you want to have strength and PMA, positive attitude, and you want to be picking out people based on the color of their singlet or their hat or whatever, and use those as focal points to move you toward the finish.
Do not be that person that I remember last year, and you see this in every race, who's like, they're going around you and they're jumping on the curb and they're like, hanging off a car trying to get around everybody. That's too much energy to expend. You will catch that person, come past the fire station. So just be patient.
Giving high fives to everybody. I mean, how do you have that kind of energy? And then to see them walking, 2 miles up the road. Sometimes not. For me, I think it was growing up with 3 brothers and no sisters. I had to hold my own. I had to be tough. And I just think, if you're passionate about what you're doing, it's much easier to be tough mentally. If you're doing something for somebody else, like way too many of our children are doing for their parents, then it's hard to be mentally tough.
I would say that over 22 marathons, I've had some really dark points on the race course, and I try to remind myself that what we're doing is a privilege. And we had a whole lot of people supporting us to get to this moment, so make the most of this moment. And then, nutritionally speaking, if you're having a really dark moment, it might be time to add in some carbohydrate.
So eat, take a gel, take a little.
I like to think I take a gel, I take a chew, and I look down at my watch and I give myself 20 minutes because I know that in 20 more minutes, I'm going to be in a better place mentally because I got a little more glycogen on board. I was training for Boston, then I started writing a book, and then I stopped training for Boston because there's only so many hours in the day. So for me right now at this point in my life, it's a balance of, responsibilities with my passion for running and, accepting the fact that I'm not like Joan and, I'm not, disclaimer, I'm not going to win on Monday. So it's...
You're not Sarah Sellers this year, you're not going to come in second.
I've come to that realization. I'm also not going to the Olympics. I'm okay with that. But it's making a balance, and as whatever your obligations are, making an appointment with yourself. That's the easiest way I've found to fit it in, and it feels a little bit selfish, but I also know that after that appointment is over, I'm a better coworker, I'm a better friend, I'm a better mom. So it's prioritizing, and and it's also being in the moment. So if I'm running, I'm running. If I'm with my kids, I'm not also on Instagram, right? So it's making, kind of balancing all this stuff at the same time.
How about you, Joan? What was one of the biggest challenges you had to overcome, or maybe right now are trying to overcome?
Well, Pam's a much younger mom than I am, and some of you have heard me say this, but I refer to my career in two phases, BC and AD, before children and after diapers. And it used to be that I planned my, before we had children, I planned my day around my running. Running took top priority, and then you have these little ones who you're responsible for, and then they become the priority. So then you schedule your running around your day. And now our children are out of the nest, and I have some of my time back, but I have a 98-year-old mother, so I have a lot of my time is spent with her when I'm home. And you know, it's just, again, the balancing act and slotting yourself at the most opportune time for your workout. Like Pam said, if she knows she's going to be a much better person, but she's going to get through something and she'll rush her run or feel as though she doesn't have ample time to do it, then she'll put it off. I always try to do my training in the morning just because I know my day's going to fill up and it's going to be harder and the day's going to wear me down. So if you can, you know, take the first available slot and go with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always read the articles over, you know, mom of 4 runs 2:30 marathon, and every time I think, I'm like, I bet she gets up really early. I think it's taking a moment to prioritize. Like, if your priorities are family, work, running, then your priority is probably not also watching TV, or I no longer, you know, arrange flowers or decorate cakes or whatever. So it's like, what is really important, and it's finding those balance, because it's like, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at once, right? And for me, and probably for Joan, running, the training phase is ebb and flow, right? So for leading up to a marathon, heavy mileage, heavy time commitment, and then there's a little bit of, you know, an ebb afterwards until, you know, perhaps you find your next goal race and then you're gonna ramp back up. But it's not, you know, 365 days of the year, you're out there.
I would definitely agree with that, and you know, you just, prioritizing is an important thing, and ironically, I prioritize my day and week and, you know, month or whatever when I'm out running, because I run unplugged. I don't listen to podcasts or music or news or whatever. That's my time. That's when I just want to be one with nature and think about what truly is important to me that day and that week, and, you know, maybe talk about goal setting and things like that, or you think about. Well, hopefully the weather will cooperate. The forecast seems to be improving, but we really won't know until we get out to Hopkinton. And I would say, bring plenty of warm clothes, plenty of layers. I mean, they say it's going to get warm and it's going to be humid, but, you know, when you're standing around, you get cold, especially if you're burning calories in anticipation of what's about to unfold. So layers, and nothing sentimental that you don't want to live in. And then, as we both said, there's a slight downhill. You may be rushed into your corrals because they're trying to close the gap between the different starts. I don't want to say the thunder and lightning words, but there's been some talk about that happening mid-race. But the weather forecast keeps changing, and you know what? You can't do a darn thing about the weather, so don't worry about the weather. Just worry about your race strategy and plan, and just stay with that, and don't get cross-eyed about what might or might not happen. And then hold yourself back when you go out. You know what you're planning or hoping to run, and just know that there'll be a lot of people around you, and it's downhill, so watch your footing early on until you find your space. And remember, it's easy to pass people. You know, there'll be people, if it's a nice day, there'll be people spurring you and supporting you on. I mean, this race, the crowd support is like no other race. And these fabled Heartbreak Hills, if you haven't run the course, if it's a nice day, there'll be enough people out there so it'll level the playing field, so to speak. You won't really notice the profile of the rising, which is kind of cool because they're so
happy to see you pass, and they still want you to get to your finish line and to reach your goal time and things like that. So again, for me, it's getting out of Hopkinton, it's getting through Ashland, it's coming into Framingham, where there'll be a great crowd in the square there. It's then Wellesley College, and then it's, you know, the uphill over 128 coming out of Wellesley into Newton, and then it's the fire station. So this is what I remember, and I just always want to feel like my race is really starting at the fire station. So you want to be as nutritionally fit as you can be at that time, and you want to feel like, okay, game face now, it's time to really move.
My core strategy would be, from a nutrition standpoint, even fuel. So while we say nothing new on race day, hopefully this is the way you've been training, where I've run into plenty of people who like stockpile their fuel for the later miles, which is a terrible idea. It's not like a treat you get at the end, right? The gels are not that tasty. So I like to see runners start to fuel early. That's really important if it's a little bit cold, and those electrolytes are a little extra electrolyte are going to help you if it's warm as well. So I like to start to see people fueling early and often, right? You don't necessarily even have to take a gel in one sitting, right? You can split it up over a mile or two. If it's raining, your hand will get washed off from the stickiness. You can, you know, I personally use like chews or chomps over the first couple miles, because I can take one like every 2-3 miles, etc. Mentally, it's something that I'm like, okay, every 2 miles sort of thing. It's a very even fueling strategy. And as you know, water or Gatorade is going to be set up every few miles, right? But before you take a cup at every station, I would like you to think about your training and think, did you have a cup of water every 2 miles, right? Your body may not actually need those fluids or that kind of cadence of hydration. Again, weather changes things, but you know, it's okay if you miss a water stop here and there. If you didn't fuel every 2 miles during training. So nothing to worry about. Just again, try to emulate your training, nothing new on race day. Same fuel strategy, be confident in that, and then just do the same